welcome in. It's good to have you. So I'd like to start the show with a little bit of levity today because we're going to talk about tariffs. We're going to talk now the EU and company are countering what Donald Trump is doing against Canada with putting these 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum coming from our partners and friends up north. Well, now the EU is getting involved. We'll get to it momentarily. But I did want to just start with a little bit of levity today. Everything just feels so heavy these days. So the Prime Minister of Ireland is in Washington today, Michael Martin. And before a meeting in the Oval Office just a short time ago with the president, Vice President J.D. Vance hosted a breakfast. And in that breakfast, the vice president pointed out a piece of clothing that he was wearing to welcome in the Irish delegation.
He taught me about sock diplomacy, about the importance of gifting socks to my fellow senators. Something that had, I give, Massachusetts socks to our friends from Massachusetts and Utah socks to our friend from Utah. So, Cullen, in your honor, I've worn these shamrocks. And I will say when we meet later in the Oval Office to the Taoiseach, the president is a very big fan of conservative dress. And so if he notices these socks, you have to defend me in the Oval Office and say, this is an important part of cementing the Irish-American relationship, and that's the only reason I'm wearing these socks.
So I don't know if you could hear it, but he was talking about the socks that he was wearing. They were white socks, white dress socks with green shamrocks on them. And this is a traditional thing where the leaders of Ireland come to the United States ahead of St. Patrick's Day. And so in that Oval Office meeting, Donald Trump saw the socks that J.D. Vance was wearing and got a little bit distracted.
I have to speak of inflation. I love these socks. What's with these socks? President Trump. I'm trying to stay focused, but I'm very impressed with the VP's socks.
Yeah, distracted by the VP socks. So just a little bit of levity. Is that all right? Can we start everything with a little bit of levity today? So it was a fun moment this morning. Meanwhile, there was some fireworks yesterday on Capitol Hill. And if you want to weigh on this, I would, I don't know that we're going to be able to take calls on this right now, but if you want to text in, 800-859-0957, 800-859-0WJR. So, Brian, the president signed an executive order recognizing two genders, male and female. Well, that is a bit problematic for one representative in Congress who is transgender. That's Sarah McBride out of Delaware, a Democrat. And in a subcommittee on House Foreign Affairs, there was a little bit of a blow-up because the ranking chair, Keith Self out of Texas, the Republican, introduced Sarah McBride as Mr. And he said, we recognize the representative out of Delaware, Mr. McBride. The ranking chair, Bill Keating, out of Massachusetts, the Democrat, said, Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, you have no decency. I mean, I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent. To which Keith Self responded, well, we've set a standard on the House floor. And it blew up from there. And then the ranking member from Massachusetts said, well, you're not going to continue this meeting with me. And as a result, the meeting was adjourned. So a little bit of a blow up. And I guess my question is, isn't there a way around that? Isn't there a way around recognizing a gender? Like, couldn't you say the representative from Delaware?
You could, or you
McBride?
Could just do what someone has asked you to do for them.
Well, that's
if I asked you to call me something different,
yeah,
isn't it respectful to do what I've asked you to do?
It feels like Republicans don't want to do that. Of
course not, because they want to
divide
us.
And so as a result, there's a way around it. All you have to say is the representative from Delaware.
Right.
Representative
But he didn't want to do
McBride.
that because he wanted to Show himself, as my granddad would say.
It does feel a little bit like there was a point to be made there. And I guess you just wonder, like, there's obviously a huge portion of America that agrees with this. There's a huge portion of America, it's an 80-20 issue for trans athletes in women's sports. So there is this feeling
that's
around
a little
it.
different to me.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand, but I'm talking about just
Right.
the overall
Right.
umbrella theme here. And it feels like there's a way to do this without.
Yes, there is.
I mean, to conduct business
Yes.
without recognizing this person how she would like to be recognized.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an issue, but it turned out to be an issue. I mentioned the EU. Well, Donald Trump has imposed these 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum coming from Canada. As a result, new taxes on U.S. products from textiles and water heaters is now being tariffed, because Canada's saying today that they'll place a 25% reciprocal tariff on steel products and also raise taxes on a number of other items, tools, computers, and display monitors, sports equipment, things like that. And the EU says that they'll raise tariffs on American beef, on poultry, on bourbon, motorcycles, peanut butter, all different kinds of foods. And this is and look, Donald Trump's been very critical of European countries. He was critical of Ireland to the Taoiseach of Ireland today, the prime minister. So this is where you start getting into, well, it's not just Canada, it's not just Mexico, it's not just China, is now that these reciprocal tariffs that are going to roll out here in the next 2 weeks is going to ruffle some feathers internationally across the pond. What did you make of the decision by the administration on mass layoffs at the education department? Did you see that?
I did. I'm sort of mixed on that. I understand every one of these big departments probably has a lot of fat to cut, but I just hear my dad in my head, how dumb do you want to be? We're really going to get rid of more education stuff?
Well, this is the first step in doing away with the Department of Education. Because Secretary Linda McMahon told Fox News yesterday on Laura Ingram's show that this is the president's mandate, that he directed her to shut down the Department of Education. They'll obviously have to work with Congress, but this was the first step in eliminating what she says is bureaucratic bloat, and that there is a way to funnel the funds that the Department of Education gets into the states and let the states handle education purely. The federal government won't have any oversight into it. But this is something that Donald Trump has talked a lot about, and he is not the first president to talk about doing away with the Department of Education, a department that's only existed since the early 70s. So this is a something that, particularly in conservative circles, I mean, you've got economists like Milton Friedman for years saying that the Department of Education is essentially obsolete. But this is something that is becoming much more real. And again, Linda McMahon's right that if they do away with the Department of Education, they are going to have to go through Congress. There's a report out in Bloomberg that Vladimir Putin is likely to drag his feet out in these peace talks with Ukraine and the United States, that Russia wasn't informed in advance of a U.S. plan that Ukraine had accepted. Trump, meanwhile, saying that he won't need to pressure Vladimir Putin to agree to this deal because he believes that he will agree to the deal. Ball's in Vladimir Putin's court. I am a little more skeptical. I have a feeling that Vladimir Putin isn't just going to accept this deal on its face, that there is going to be more negotiations to be had, which will certainly change the position of Ukraine accepting this deal. But I have a very sneaky suspicion that Vladimir Putin isn't just going to rubber stamp this.
And isn't one of the concerns also that Vladimir Putin has a long history of saying, absolutely, we accept the deal and doing what he wants anyway?
Sure. That's something that happens between adversarial people for many years.
But he's had a history of doing
It's happened in the Middle East on
Oh, well, yeah.
More
Historically, it's
than
happened a lot, but I
than
think
100
Putin
occasions.
has a history of
Yeah,
going back
sure.
on his words. So
Sure.
more than a grain of salt, I would think.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so these tariffs continue to be a major issue, a major topic. We'll talk to Stephen Moore on the other side here on JR Afternoon.